Shalom, all. Hope you're doing well. Let's just get to it. I'm feeling a lot of anguish right now because of where we are as God's people. I see a lot of us fighting over nonsense pretty much. And when I say nonsense, I'm not talking about things like abortion or the vaccine. These things matter, and what you put in your body matters. And standing up for what's right matters. But as far as politics go, the enemy has warped our minds completely. He has fooled us into having a different enemy. Our enemy has always been our flesh, the adversary, mainly our flesh, because the adversary isn't always omnipresent. Therefore, our flesh is the main enemy. And the flesh can get in the way of a lot of things, and it has gotten in the way of many things in church history that were probably too comfortable to admit, but a lot of things throughout church history have been ordained by the flesh. A lot of ministries, a lot of events throughout history have been ordained by the flesh, cloaked under a false guise of Yeshua. I think the Reformation did some good, but at the same time, there shouldn't have been a Reformation. Because what Yeshua and the Father says doesn't need a Reformation at all. It needs a restoration, because we've discarded it for so long. We've abandoned the full context. We wanted to discard of the original context and the original meaning of what they mean and try to fit it into our 21st century American mode of American Christianity, which isn't Christianity at all. It's a dead, counterfeit religion that's been passed off for too long. And it's very easy to point out unbelievers, and we do that. I see that all the time. It's so easy to point out how wicked unbelievers are and the wickedness they're committing and the wickedness and lawlessness that's being perpetuated every day by those who don't believe. But frankly, we're not any different. The church isn't any different, and that's sad for me to say. It's very easy to condemn the lawlessness that you see on the news, whether it's Antifa or Black Lives Matter, and it's important to not get caught up in that either as a believer. But at the same time, we need to examine where we are as the assembly, as God's people, and examine and analyze where we are and where we've been. Because obviously, there's not going to be a revival no matter how much we want to scream revival, no matter how many rock concerts we do that we want to call worship, when that's not worship at all. It's just simply, it's no different than a rock concert. When true worship is in every aspect of our lives, true worship is a life led for God's approval, God's obedience. A true aspect of worship is living a life worthy of God's sacrifice and Yeshua's sacrifice, and for God's glory. Having a smoke mirror, fog lights on stage, lights and everything, that's not worship. That's emotionalism. It's not just singing songs. It's the way we live. It's saying yes to God and His ways with no backbiting and no excuses. Even though our flesh may get in the way sometimes, and it does. But we need to push over that flesh, and by His Spirit, it will help us to say no to the resistance that comes with the flesh in doing what God instructs. And that's been the history throughout the Bible itself. The redemption on God's part, rebellion as far as God's people, and this is not just Jews too, so be careful. We always want to talk about how the Jews in the old time, in the so-called Old Testament, is one book. Judea wasn't the only tribe at that time. There were non-Jews then as well. So you might want to get rid of the haughty spirit you have when it comes to those in the old of the former covenant. And if you are a believer, you're grafted in with them, whether you like it or not. It's one tree. God has always had one people, one tribe, one set of instructions, and one tree. We're just branches that happen to be grafted in. But I wanted to get to a few passages. Psalm 53. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt and have committed abominable injustice. There is no one who does good. God has looked down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if there is anyone who understands, who seeks after God. Every one of them has turned aside. Together they have become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. And we see the same thing repeated in Romans 3. Don't trust what the world calls good, what the world system refers to as good, because it's not good at all. Only God knows what's good because He Himself is good. Don't look to anything of mankind to see what is considered good or worthy, because it is done in the end. Everything from the beginning was good, and what God creates is good. And we're in no place to call what God has made good and called good a burden or unnecessary, whatever that may be. I'm not just talking about Sabbath and things like that. With our actions, we want to call God's ways bondage or a burden. Not always outwardly, but that can be done within our attitudes as well, when we decide to do things our own way. And we've been doing that since the beginning of time. Look how that's panned out. We have a heightened sense of fear, a heightened sense of rebellion, of pride, of lawlessness, of anarchy, and many other iniquities. And we want to pin all that on those who lean left and those who are infiltrating on our rights and liberties and trying to take over this nation as if it's a Christian nation anyway. This is not a Christian nation. I'm sorry to say that. Well, actually, I'm not sorry. This nation as a whole does not represent God and doesn't represent Yeshua in the slightest way collectively. We've abandoned His ways. We've wanted to become God ourselves. And it seems now that modern Christianity have more in common with atheism than it does biblical Christianity, which is a signal that it hasn't been working this past few centuries. And that's not going to change by simply inviting people to church and simply... No, people have to have an individual encounter with God themselves. We can point them to that. We can be lights. We can be where God chooses to send us, and to be salt and light, and to edify them. But that decision is up to them as an individual. But we can't give up either. We can't lose hope. Because God didn't do the same with us. We can't be the gatekeepers of other people's salvation. especially the Jewish people, even though many tried to do so. And I can't emphasize this enough. Stop putting your trust in man. That's one of the main reasons why we're in our current situations, and why things are continuing to, and why things have been plaguing society for so long. We keep trusting in man, in man-made entities and man-made systems, instead of the one who created us. Stop trusting in man-made groups, artificial systems, artificial categories, because they're all on the same side. They're all on the same team. I don't care what anybody says. And you're being deceived if you think that either side is for you. There will be many on either side hearing, "I never knew you." Being a conservative doesn't mean you're a believer. There are many unconverted conservatives in this nation. That's not an indicator of your faith. Your faith should lead you to vote accordingly, but don't make it an idol, because it's a very prevalent idol as we speak. I'm trying to get to Psalm 118. We all know Psalm 118:6, "The Lord is for me, I will not fear. What can man do to me?" What man can do to you is what you allow them to do when you're not submitted to God fully. And when you're not trusting in Him and you're trusting in your own flesh instead. Only when you find complete reliance on your Creator and His Son, Yeshua the Messiah, Jesus Christ, then that belief fear shall eradicate. And the only one you should fear is God. You shouldn't fear anything here more than you should fear God. Even what they're implementing today, which shall not be named. If something in this world is getting to you and allowing you to fear that more than you fear God, then something's wrong. And you probably don't have that much trust and faith in Him at the moment. And I know faith can waver sometimes, but He will help you with that if you allow Him to. Again, if you allow Him to do that. It's our choice. It's faith and fear, not faith over fear. But the right fear is what matters. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. I can't say things are going to get better, because they're only going to get worse. And again, I can't expect a disobedient, for the most part, congregation to be raptured and avoid tribulation. Seek God now while He is still near, and while you still have a chance. If need be, get on your knees and cry out to Him, and repent on behalf of this nation, this world as a whole. Continue to be salt and light, and don't let what's been going on cause you to sin. Stay close to Him and abide in Him. Stop trusting in man. Trust solely in Him. And I'm praying for you all, and know that I'm with you. And I love you all, and I say all of this, all of my previous, not out of pride, not because I know everything. I don't know anything. I'm in the same boat as all of you, and doing to the end by His help. Stay close to God in these last days, and keep praying, pressing on, and being refined. Abba bless you all in Yeshua's name.